Hello and welcome to another session, and this time on idioms and phrasal verbs. This is a subject area that most people, most learners tend to ignore. So they work on their vocabulary of big words, they work on learning grammar a little bit, some reading maybe, but idioms and phrasal verbs most people tend to ignore. And this is also the reason that most people struggle with, let's say, having command over the language. So they know the words and meanings, they've been working on their language for a while, but there is no fluency, or the language does not feel natural, right? And the reason for that is the lack of idiomatic expression, right? Okay, so what does an idiom mean, right? An idiom is a group of words established by usage. That means there's no logic to it. It's just by habit or usage. It has been established as having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words. So this is the key part. Idioms are a group of words where the meaning is not deducible from those of the individual words. And that's why, for a non native speaker of the English language, these idioms or phrasal verbs often create a problem. Why? Because people tend to translate them word by word or literally, whereas these idioms or phrasal verbs work more like metaphors or analogies or similes, right? So the literal translation does not work. For example, over the moon does not really mean over the moon. Over the moon means feeling very, very happy, as if you went so high as above the moon, right? Seeing the light is could be seeing the light, but more often than not, seeing the light means seeing the truth or accepting the reason, right? So, an idiom is a group of words where the meaning is not deducible. That means you have to find out and learn the meaning, and natural, simple translation will not work, right? So, you have to. So, how do people learn these idioms? Because these idioms are all over in the language. So, maybe simply by reading, having a regular reading habit of newspapers, magazines, watching English news channels, etc., etc. If you are surrounded by language, you'll also be surrounded by idioms. And a lot of those idioms you might have learned already simply by observation or listening a few times, right? So, those are idioms. And phrasal verbs are basically a verb and a preposition or an adverb, etc. And again, the meaning is not that of the literal translation. So, for example, when we look at the word look up to means to have a great deal of respect. So, looking up to someone, looking up is having respect, right? Whereas if somebody had done a simple translation, he would think look up means simply look up. That means keep your eyes in the upwards direction, right? But that's not what look up to someone means. It means to have a great deal of respect. Now, there is some logic of looking up also involved, because when you have respect for people, let's say somebody who's elder to you. So when you are young, they are also, when let's say you're a child, an adult is bigger than you, so you are looking up to your adults, right, for guidance and help, etc. Or let's say if there is a leader that you follow, right, the leader is typically again on a stage or on a higher pedestal or on generally bigger, taller, above you is also, right? So that kind of idea, and that's why the concept of looking up and therefore having respect for someone. The opposite of that is also look down, which is to think that the person that you're talking to or looking at is inferior than you and you are superior. But this is just an introduction to get you started at what is a phrasal verb. A phrasal verb is also an idiomatic expression. Why idiomatic? Because again, the meaning is not deducible from simple translation, right? So, in this session, we look at a few idioms and a set of phrasal verbs related to look, like look up, look down, look after, etc. And even the idioms, because there are so many, we have, let's say, grouped them around one theme, which is animal based idioms. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first one is black sheep. Take a second or two and think of whatever image comes to your mind, because idioms are like that. They're highly visual word groups, right? So think of an image that comes to your mind and see what meaning would you be able to derive from that, right? So the image would be something like this. Normally the sheep are white and we have a black sheep. Now what it means is it means a member of a family or a group who is regarded as a disgrace to it. Or it could just be a member of a family or group who is different from the majority, right? So a disgrace or different, you could say black sheep. So let's say in a family of doctors, if there is a musician, that person can be considered a black sheep of the family. The origin of this idiom black sheep is from the proverb, there is a black sheep in every flock, right? Or there is a bad apple in every set of apples or something like that. So this is black sheep, right? So you see that though the literal translation does not work, there is a close connection between the image that you would come up with and the actual meaning, right? So it's not very far away or totally random or totally disconnected. Black is different from white, majority is white. So black sheep is the odd one out, the odd member of the family. The sheep becomes a human being, right? A cat nap, right? Nap is to sleep. So a cat nap is to sleep like a cat. So ask yourself, how does a cat sleep? So if you observe a cat around you, you will see that it sleeps for very short periods of time, right? So in the afternoon for 10 minutes, after maybe half an hour of running around again for 10 minutes. So that kind of a short sleep is known as a cat nap, right? A short sleep during the day is a cat nap. Let the cat out of the bag, right? So imagine a cat in a bag, right? Or stepping out of the bag. Maybe instead of a Nike bag, imagine a gunny bag where the cat has been locked up or has been suffocating inside for a bit and very, very anxious. So when the cat will come out, what will happen, right? So imagine that kind of a scenario. And what does it mean? It means to reveal a secret carelessly or by mistake. So let's say something that you were not supposed to share with someone, but you accidentally share that information. So that is letting the cat out of the bag, right? So say you had planned a surprise birthday party for your friend, right? And he wasn't supposed to know, but you ended up blurting the details of the party. So you let the cat out of the bag. So cat in this case refers to the secret and bag refers to the person holding the secret, right? Has the cat got your tongue, right? Slightly difficult one. Even with the image, it might be difficult. So this phrase is used when it is said to someone who remains silent when they're expected to speak. So let's say somebody was you ask somebody a question and they just can't answer anymore, right? Suddenly they just can't even open their mouth. So in such a situation, you say, has a cat got your tongue, right? We can also go into some origins, right? So for example, about this cat getting your tongue, there are a lot of stories that why is this phrase there. So for example, there is a story that there were kings who would cut out the tongue of people, let's say people they did not like, and throw it to the cats to eat as a punishment, right? So people would prefer to remain quiet rather than offend the king, so that so the cat would end up with their tongue, right? Or there are many such stories. So maybe going into the origins of an idiom might be a good idea too, because you get to know a little more about the culture and it becomes slightly more interesting rather than simple monotonous repetition and just simply memorizing stuff, right? So you get a little more juice out of it. Rain, cats and dogs. This is fairly easy. It's raining heavily. So instead of saying it's raining very, very hard, people say it's raining cats and dogs, as if the raindrops are as fat or as big as animals, right? Again, a very interesting story behind it. I'm not sure whether the story is true or not, but it's fun, so it might as well go through it, right? So let's say in old English homes, the roof is made up of straw, and in the summers, cats and dogs would go and stay and sleep in that straw on the roof. And when it began to rain, the straw would become thin and the animals would start falling into the house. So when it became when it started raining very heavily, the animals would actually fall into the house, and maybe that's the origin of the phrase raining cats and dogs. Though I'm pretty sure the story is not true, right? But it's just fun. Be barking up the wrong tree. So barking like a dog and barking up the wrong tree. So first of all, have you ever seen a dog bark up a tree? I have seen it like somewhere in the where there were trees and there were monkeys. So monkeys were in the trees and the dogs were barking at the monkeys in the tree. So it looked like as if the dog was barking up at the tree, but barking up the wrong tree, right? So what does that mean? So the image would be something like this, that the dog is barking up a tree, but the cat or the monkey is on some different tree. So it means to be pursuing a mistaken or misguided line of thought or course of action, right? So instead of pursuing the right action, if you pursue the wrong action or the wrong path, that is barking up the wrong tree, right? So in this case, the barking dog represents the person taking the action and the tree represents a path or a course, right? Moving on. Let sleeping dogs lie, right? So imagine that there are sleeping dogs and the phrase is let them lie. That means don't wake them up, right? So why? Because if you wake them up, then again they will be very energetic, jumping around. Maybe they will disturb you and create a ruckus and a nuisance. So let them sleep. What does it mean? It means avoid interfering in a situation that is currently causing no problems. A sleeping dog causes no problems, right? But may well do so as a result of such interference. So if the dog wakes up, there will be a problem, right? And in this case, the dog is representing a situation or a problem, basically a situation, right? So sleeping dog represents a situation that means which is inert or inactive, and letting it remain inactive, because if you disturb it, you might have to pay a penalty or it might become a problem for you. So let sleeping dogs lie. Take the bull by the horns, right? So you can imagine a person sitting on top of a bull holding the horns to control the bull, or you can imagine a person in front of a bull and trying to push the bull back using the horns, right? So any image that you can come up with, what would it mean, right? It means to deal decisively with a difficult or dangerous situation. So right, let's say the bull is the dangerous or the difficult situation, and even in that difficult situation or dangerous situation, the horns of the bull are the most dangerous. That's how the bull can really cause some damage, can gore you, right? So trying to hold on to that part which is the most dangerous, that means taking direct action, decisive action is to take the bull by the horns, right? So let's say you're preparing for the exam and let's say you are weak in maths and maths is your dangerous or difficult situation. So you directly deal with maths instead of running away from it. You straight away go for maths, and the most difficult part of maths, that would be taking the bull by the horns. A little bird told me, right? It is used to indicate that the speaker knows something but chooses to keep the identity of their informant secret, right? So let's say your friend is getting married, they haven't told you, and but somebody else has told you that news, right? But while talking to your friend, you don't want to share which friend has told you. So you say, a little bird has told me, right? Or I think the Hindi equivalent would be Urti Urti Khabar Aayi hai. Or another English would be, I heard it through the grapevine, right? So a little bird told me is a person. Bird represents a person or a friend that you do not want to name, and somebody who has shared information with you that you are now sharing with a third person or the person that you're talking with, right? So a little bird told me is used to indicate that the speaker knows something, a little bit of information, and also from a source that the speaker does not want to name. Pigs might fly or pigs can fly. This phrase is used to indicate disbelief and ironical disbelief. So ironically, we'll not worry about it. It's a separate word altogether. But basically to express disbelief. So let's say if somebody says, someday India will win the football World Cup. And you respond by saying, yeah, India will win the football World Cup and pigs will fly, right? Or pigs can fly, right? Or let's say somebody says that corruption can be wiped out of the country, and the other person in disbelief says, and yes, yes, pigs can fly, right? Or when pigs fly, this will happen. So you're showing utter disbelief in something and comparing the likelihood of that event to pigs flying, right? And pigs flying, I'm sure you can imagine, is a very, very or a very unlikely event to happen, right? Okay, so I hope these examples of animal idioms made sense and served as an introduction or as a kickstarting your idioms and phrasal verb preparation. Here are a few more animal idioms for you. Uh, Write them down in your notebook. You can use Google to search for them and find their meaning. I also strongly recommend buying yourself an idioms and phrasal verbs book separately. It won't cost you more than 100 and 120 rupees or something, and it can be of great value addition to your overall preparation for an exam or for just learning the language, right? So these idioms are for practice. Try and find their meaning, try and visualize, try and see the connection between the image that you come up with and the actual meaning. You will see that it's not too far away from the image, but there is some change, right? So practice with these, right? The other thing that we were discussing were phrasal verbs. So let's look at one set of them. Let's look at the verb look and add prepositions and adverbs, etc. to it and see what we can come up with, right? So first one is look after. Once again, if let's say if you do not know the meaning, the chances are that you will add look and after and look at a very literal meaning of that. But look after means to take care of someone, right? Similarly, look back at or look back on, right? So when you say look back, so somebody might turn and look back behind their back, right? But what it really means is to look back at past events, think of past events. So in our day-to-day life, we tend to think of the past as behind us and future in front of us. We have a very, I think most of us have that linear view of time, that the past is behind us and the future is in front of us. So looking back means to look back at past events or think back or looking back inside your head, right? Thinking back of past events. Look down on. So regard someone with a feeling of superiority. That means you treat someone as if you are better than them and they are worse off than you. Then you are looking down upon them or looking down on them, right? Why? Because let's say even the words, right? Higher standing in society. So you think you are higher and therefore you're looking down on someone, right? The best way would be to probably look as equals between at the same level with everybody. Uh, so look down is when you think somebody is below you or inferior than you and you are better than them. The opposite of that we discussed earlier was look up, when you think that the person is better than you and you have some respect for them or a great deal of respect for them, right? So I hope this is making more and more sense to you, right? Look forward to is to await eagerly. So let's say your birthday is coming up in 15 days or next month. So you're really looking forward to that event, or you're really looking forward to your results if the exam has gone well, right? Or you're really looking forward to the next chapter in your life or whatever, right? So awaiting eagerly for something is to look forward to, right? Look in. Now, again, if you go for a literal translation, someone would assume that it means to look inside. So maybe there is a window or a door and you look in. But what it actually means is to make a short visit or a call. So I'll say maybe I'll look in on you tomorrow. I'll be passing through this area, so I'll look in on you. That means I'll drop for a short visit. I won't visit you for 2 hours or 3 hours. I'll just drop in, maybe say hello and then go again, right? Or somebody says my cousin or my friend is there, so do look in on them. That means go check out, say hello to them, just see if they're okay or not. So that's how this is used. Look on is to watch without getting involved. So let's say if there is something happening in front of you, let's say maybe two people start fighting and you just keep looking and you don't involve yourself in that event. In that case, you are just looking on, right? And this is a very, very common thing, especially in our country at least, that there is an accident or something and people are just lookers on. That means they just watch, they don't do anything, they don't take any action, right? So watching without getting involved is to look on. Look out. Now this can be used two ways. One as a command. So for example, let's say you are in a cricket field and your friend is standing next to you, and the ball is going towards him and he hasn't noticed. So you will say, look out. So it's used as a command to alert the person towards maybe something coming towards them or some event happening around them. Other way of using is to be vigilant and take notice of things. In terms of example, companies are always on the lookout for good talent. That means they're always looking out, or they're always aware and taking notice of good talent. So looking out. Once again, if you had gone for a literal translation, looking out would be like maybe looking out of the window or looking outside your home or something like that, right? So that's where phrasal verbs are different from ordinary usage, because the translation does not quite work, and the function is idiomatic in nature, right? Look up, not look up to someone, but just look up. So let's say when is basically the meaning is to improve, things are looking up, right? Because up is good, down is bad. So things are down, but now things are looking up. So maybe the weather was very, very bad for the last few days, and today you saw some sunlight, and maybe it was clearer. I'm assuming there was rain for the last few days, and now you saw sunshine. So you'll say the weather is looking up. Similarly, let's say if the last few days were very, very hot and it became cooler and windy and maybe a little rainy, you'll again say maybe the weather is looking up. Or maybe you run a company, and for the last few months you have been struggling, but now you have started making some money. So you will say, yeah, things are now looking up, right? Towards the upwards direction where things are better, right? So looking up. Look something up. Now basically this means to Google, right, these days. So look something up means to search for and find a piece of information in a book or a database. Now instead of a book or a database, we look something up mostly on the internet. So look something up is to find something or find a piece of information. Look someone up. So let's say your friend is going to a new city, and you have a friend there, right? And you want both of your friends to meet each other. So you tell your friend that go and meet my friend, or maybe you should look him up, right? Or look her up. So when you are in that town, do look someone up. That means go make a short social contact or social visit, say hello to them, make friends with them. So yeah, so let's say I'm going to a new city and somebody tells me I have a friend there. I'd say, yeah, surely I'll look them up, right? So that means I'll go say hello, introduce myself. So look someone up. And lastly, what we began with, look up to, is to have a great deal of respect for someone. We already discussed the kind of logic involved in behind the expression. Okay, that's about it for this session. I hope you had fun and learned some things. I leave you with another set of phrasal verbs to work with. So I hope you do work on your idioms and phrasal verbs preparation. Get yourself a good book and work hard. See you soon.